going to just briefly go into real quickly how solar works and in various setups. And basically, here it is. The sun hits the panel, creates DC power. Depending on where the inverter is, we have an inverter that takes that DC power, turns it into alternating current for your house. Okay, and so here's the easiest installation. Put it on your roof. It's the least expensive. It's the easiest. It also has its limitations. It's limited by how old your roof is. We won't put it up on a roof that's older than 10 years, 12 years. We won't put it on a slate roof. It's limited by the size. Here's the size of your roof. That's how many panels can we put. What I do is I'm building my systems. It's not a law in Vermont right now, but it will be shortly. For fire safety, you have to have 36 inches around each edge and also on top of the roof. It's starting to be a law nationwide, and I'm just building my systems knowing that that's what we're going to have to do. If you talk to firefighters, they come to a house and there's no room for them to climb on there, they're not going to climb up on there. So anyway, what that does is it kind of shortens the roof a little bit. Now we got to allow 36 inches on each side and up on the ridge. So that's the roof is the easiest, but it also has some limitations. And then there's the ground mount. So what we can do with the ground is we can find a place with no shade. Rooftops, sometimes you can have shade. We'll find a place that we can face it perfectly south-facing. It's modular, so what's your electric bill? That determines how many panels we need to put up. Well, then what we can do is sections of 4. We can here's 6. Well, we can do 8 sections of 4. So it's kind of modular. We can add up as many as we want to provide the power that you need. It's a little bit more expensive because we got to put in some of the structure. Sometimes we have people watching us closely, or in this case, we were installing in Danby, and they had alpacas. So every time we turned around, there was a gang watching us really closely. Another one you can do is the all-earth tracker. And so what that does is that wakes up facing east, follows the sun all day long. So it's at the perfect angle every minute of the day. My rooftop system is at the perfect angle for like a minute. Actually, yeah, about a minute. And so this is the most expensive installation. It's got moving parts. Some people are kind of freaked out about the moving parts. The beauty of it is it's made here in Vermont. It's designed here in Vermont, and they engineered it. It's really kind of brilliant engineering. It's all made with tractor parts. So if something breaks down, you don't have to call China or Switzerland or whatever to get a new part. You can literally go to Tractor Supply and get a new drive or a new gear. And there's still have a 25-year warranty in the panel. The moving parts is a 10-year warranty. So some people are a little bit concerned about moving parts. The alternative to one of these is you put more on the ground, if you're looking for that output. But so those are a variety of the options that you have. Yes. So he's asked how more efficient the tracker is. They will tell you, All Earth will say it's about 45% more efficient. 45. Yeah, I've found it to be a little bit less than that, but that that's what they're saying is 45%. I would go more. When I tell people, I try and be conservative, so I'll say about 40%. So it's a larger upfront cost, but the cost per kilowatt hour is actually pretty comparable. And they're really cool. We had one customer who, their solar array had to go right in their view. They watched the sunset, and they're like, well, do we really want that? Do we really want to see that tracker? So they put it behind this apple tree, because when they sit on their porch, they didn't want. And then it's so cool. They moved their chairs over so they could actually see the thing, because it is really cool. When we're putting in the trench and grass seed going down, you're working there. All of a sudden it goes. It moves about a degree or 2 at a time. Okay, but yeah, that's about how much more efficient they are. That's my crew and I at an installation training class that we went up at All Earth. So we'll talk briefly about the modules. These are not your parents' solar panels or your grandparents. They're getting more and more efficient. The panels that we're doing now with sun power are 360 watt panels. The ones that I put on my shop 4 years ago were 255 watt. So every year it's advancing. Sun power has the most efficient, like 22.4%. I think they just broke another record for efficiency. So you're getting a lot more in the same space on the roof. And then the inverter technology is advancing hugely. These are a number of different inverters. Your ability to get power off the roof. Here's a picture of an array we did. So typically how it would work is this row right here would all be on one string inverter. So your inverter's down here. So these are the larger inverters. And if there was shade on this corner of the building at 30%, then this whole string would operate at 30%. So now we're moving, the whole industry is moving towards module level electronics. So we put, I'll go back to this is a little microinverter. This is an N-phase microinverter. What that does is each of these has an inverter mounted with it. So if this one's operating at 30%, these all remain autonomous. You're getting 100% out of those. So you're getting a lot more out of the same system by putting electronics up on the roof. There's also an aspect of fire safety here. There's another law that's called rapid shutdown. And when firefighters go up on the roof, if you have this DC inverter down here, and they're fighting a fire during the day, this DC power is still on. They can turn the power off down here, but this wire here, as long as the sun is out, you can't turn that power off. With the microinverters or AC modules, as soon as the grid, the firefighters come to a building, they'll unplug that meter, then they're shut off. These panels will no longer work. They immediately stop working. So the rapid shutdown law is, I forget how many tenths of a second that your system has to be able to turn off. When the power goes off, your system has to be able to turn off. So now we've got those microinverters on each of those. Another place where the technology is hugely improving is in storage. And this is obviously the Tesla Powerwall that everybody knows about in Vermont, because Green Mountain Power has signed up early on to be a distributor for the Tesla Powerwall. There's a bunch of different, these are lead acid batteries. They've been around forever. A lot of systems are using those. You can do sealed lead acid batteries. They need a lot of maintenance. If you take care of them, they'll last 7 to 10 years. If you don't, they'll last 2 years. It's kind of old school technology. These are some interesting batteries. They're nickel iron batteries. I got hired by Green Mountain Power to take Emerald Lake State Park off grid. So two sections of the campground, the power comes from the south, and it's this really wonky line going through the woods and over the lake, and they want to eliminate that. So we're gonna isolate that whole section of the grid, and we're going to use these batteries. They're actually invented by Thomas Edison, and they're kind of reconfigured now. It's nickel and iron, and so they never degrade. The company tells you this is the last battery you'll ever buy, 30-year battery. The beauty of them is, mostly with the lead acid, you really want to just drain them 20%, maybe 50%. With these, you can drain them 100%. They'll come back. Where we're putting them in the state park closes the beginning of November. And so originally, they were talking about putting in a bunch of Tesla Powerwalls for this battery storage. Well, we were going to have to take them all down, put them in storage for the winter, put them back up, which is ridiculous. These things can freeze. Leave them there. They freeze, come back in the spring, they're thawed out, boom, we're ready to go. So really cool battery technology. It's been around for a while, and these guys have reconfigured it. So we're pretty excited about that installation. And Green Mountain Power, they've hired me to do that, and then this is like a pilot program for, our utility is actually pretty forward-thinking. Green Mountain Power understands about, what's going to happen at the state park is it's still going to be their grid. It's just not going to be attached to the rest of the grid. So as far as the state park is concerned, we're going to have a source of energy. There's going to be a meter. It's going to charge them for the kilowatt hours they use. Nothing changes for the state park. It's just how it's supplied to them. So Green Mountain Power is taking this part of their grid, and they're just making it isolated from the rest of it. So it's pretty brilliant, and I think it's the way that we are going to be moving forward. These batteries here, another interesting company called Aqueon Energy. It's a saltwater technology. So the electrolyte is salt water. You could literally drill a hole in the side of the battery and your cat could lick it up and everybody's fine. Again, those can be drained 100% depth of discharge. I'll show you a setup of those in a couple slides. They're really heavy and they take up a lot of space, but very cool technology. And then this is a battery that I'm starting to install on a bunch of jobs. It's Sonnen battery. It's a German company, but they're made in the US. And it's a lithium ion. And basically compared to Tesla, and it's not even a fair fight. They last 3 times longer, 100% depth of discharge. They have basically with all these, you have to have a charge controller, you've got to have inverters, you have a bunch of electronics to transfer the DC power to the AC and for storage. And with this, it's all built in. So it's literally the size of about half of a refrigerator. And it's stackable in 2 kilowatt-hour increments up to 16 kilowatt-hours. So when we're talking about batteries, what we do is we look at the same thing you do when you have a backup generator. How many kilowatt-hours do you need? Let's look at, if you've got the solar, what's it going to produce in the worst time of year, which is when you lose your power, December. So how many kilowatt-hours a day is your solar generating? How many kilowatt-hours are you using? And how many days of autonomy do you want? The power goes out, you're going to run off your batteries for 3 days maybe before the solar panels can charge them. So we just take a spreadsheet, figure out how many kilowatt hours you need, how many you're going to supply, and that's how we size your battery. Yes. Right now what we do is we look at your protected loads. When the power goes out, you want your water, your fridge, your heat. So instead of that, let's look at all of your consumption. It's the same spreadsheet, and here we go. So your battery bank is going to expand because you need more storage. In that case, a lot of people will do a generator as a backup. We just did a system in Dorset with the batteries that I'll show you. She's got the solar panels. You've got the inverter is going to sense. All right, we got solar producing. We're going to run the house off of that. Well, we've produced more than we need for the house. Let's charge the batteries. Well, the batteries are charged. We're going to kick it back into the grid. And then the electronics, and this is how the industry is really expanding and producing more. The electronics will tell you where to send those. The grid goes down, and it's going to say, okay, we need to run off the battery now. Next day, the sun comes out, the solar panels are charging the battery. And then it'll sense, wait a second, the solar's not doing that, so it'll kick on the generator. The electronics really, when they start talking about smart grid and smart technology, it's able to say, all right, we need to draw from here, we need to put it over there. And especially with a lot of the different storage, like the Tesla Powerwall really came out as, it was more for California, where you're paying huge amounts for kilowatt hours during a certain time of day. And so the whole point being, during those 3 hours, run off your battery, so you don't have to pay 27 cents a kilowatt hour. And then after 3 hours, let's go back and you can charge your batteries on the cheaper power. And we can do that in Vermont. There's a lot of time of use rates, peak and off peak. So the Powerwall really wasn't intended for storage like you're talking. It was more for, they call it rate arbitrage. Let's mess around with the rates here, the off-peak and the peak rates. Sorry, you're asking where the controls are for all of that. So here's a set of the Acqueon batteries, the saltwater batteries. This is the Schneider system right here. So you've got a couple of charge controllers that are taking the power from the PV. Actually, the ground mount that I showed earlier is this woman's ground mount. And so these are the charge controllers that are taking the DCs coming into here, and here are the inverters. And so it's, we're building out the system right here that's going to be, it's these inverters that are piggybacking with each other, and at any given point they're going to say, wait a second, we need to throw some DC over here. I changed my monitoring slide, but I have a really good slide of how she monitors her system, and it actually just shows you there's like a little moving dot that tells you where the electrons are flowing, and the house is using, 640 watts, it's during the day, nothing's going on, and so the batteries are trickling a little bit out this way, and a ton of it's going back into the grid, because she has net metering, and it'll tell you exactly where that's flowing, but that's where all the brains are, and so we hook up like an auto generator start with this. And so then these are the brains right here that are going to tell you where everything goes. And I'll show you, this is I did it with the Sonnen battery, but it'll be, no matter what the battery is, it's the same type of thing. So this is with the grid is on. So right now we've got our protected loads here. And like I said, it's your water, it's your heat, whatever you want, to be able to turn on. So right now the sun is out, you've got 6,000 watts of solar, you're running all these, your refrigerators and everything in the house, and it's flowing through the rest of the stuff in your house, and whatever's left over is going out to the grid. So that's just a big circuit right here. And you can see that they're leaning this way. And then the grid goes out. Now, if there's an auto transfer switch, it kicks over, and so now now it's a closed loop. Here's your PV, it's still running all these, and now it's going, yeah, we're getting our regular voltage that we normally get, but it's coming from our battery. And so these will all keep working, it keeps powering those loads. Any excess is going to power the batteries, and it'll just keep going until it senses that there's power back in the grid, and then the switch is going to switch back. So that's how the brains work. And it's pretty kind of amazing technology now. I talked with this one guy, this class I took on off-grid stuff, and this guy does huge off-grid houses in Colorado, up in the mountains. And he said this technology, so what happens is we have monitoring now. So I can from my phone, I can tell you what my system's doing. I can tell you what all of my customer systems. Not only that, this guy said he had a customer call up, and they're like 4-hour drive up to their place up in the mountains. And he said, yeah, our system's not working. I don't know why. And he said, he logs on, and he checked the monitoring, and there's so much information there. And he goes, oh, I see that somebody changed the voltage setting on the battery system on September 13th. No, yeah, maybe I did do something. And he can just change it back, and you're good to go. So he literally saved himself an 8-hour call to go up, and it was because the homeowner was fudging around with the numbers on it. Just to have remote capabilities. And then this is a monitoring system with the SunPower systems that we do. And other companies are starting to catch up with this too, because everybody has monitoring. You can see what the production is. Well, what we do with the SunPower ones is we also have consumption monitoring. So in this case, and you can't see it real well, I can show you the slide afterwards, but right here, there's blue that are the sort of lower ones. Those are the consumption in the house. The green is the production of the PV. This is actually a customer of mine in Dorset. And so this is saying, 213% of the energy that he used today was generated by his solar. And so right here, it's like, okay, you produce 15.3 kilowatt hours, you use 7.2. So then 8.1 went into the grid. So this time of year, he's banking credits that he's going to use in the winter. And it'll tell you how many pounds of CO2 emissions you erased, and sometimes they'll show you little trees and how many trees you saved. But actually, once I got this guy's system done, and we got the monitoring up, and I'm like, hey, Bill, 315% of your energy was turned on. Well, he rents out his house. And he's like, yeah, except I saw that the renters turned on the air conditioning. I was like, oh man, because he can see what the consumption is. So sometimes maybe it's a little too much information, because some people do get really obsessed. What's interesting about this, and it's the same as like electric cars that you're driving now, or even in your house with thermostats. If there's a gauge that tells you what you're doing, you'll change your behavior. My electric car is like, hey, you're not driving as efficiently as you used to be. I'm like, all right. And we just installed this in this house in Rupert. And this woman said, because everyone's got a Fitbit, she said, this is like a Fitbit for your house. Her daughters are, checking it out going, oh, wait a second, maybe, they're going around turning off lights, and her husband is turning off lights. And she said, so it's really interesting to see, what we can monitor. So then how does it work for you? So what we do is we come to your place and we do a site evaluation, because we need to see, how your roof is. We're going to look at the angle of the roof, the direction that it's facing, how many panels we could put on it, how much shading there is. So we need to, first thing we do is we look at what your electric bill is. I can tell you right away, if it's $130 a month, then you need 6.5 kilowatt, boom. And then so you need 6.5 kilowatt. Well, here's how many panels you need. Where can we fit them? So here's how net metering works. What happens is we're going to end up putting a production meter right next to you. Right now you've got your current meter. It's going to be turned into a net meter. And what the net meter does is if you produce 100 kilowatt hours today and you use 100 kilowatt hours, it nets them out. Right? It takes them right off your bill. So whatever you're paying for electricity, 15 cents is what most people are paying, then that's what those credits are worth. They're worth 15 cents a kilowatt hour because it took them right off your bill. All right? Right next to it is our production meter. That's how much you're producing. So this is really important to understand, and most people don't get this. The panels don't have to be on your house. They don't have to be on your property. You know, if my daughter lives in Burlington, I can put her on my solar panels. What you do is you have that production meter, and that is a tally of how much you're producing. You get to decide where those credits get allocated. So in most cases, you're going to say, all right, it's all going to go here. In my case, I have a workshop and I also have a house. We actually pay a higher rate in our house than we do in our workshop because the workshop is a business and the rate's a little bit less. So we send all the first credits all go to the house because it's worth more to us. And so it's important to understand that net metering, even though the electrons are flowing and it's down through your meter, that isn't the meter that they have to be credited to. They can go to any meter that you want within the same utility. In this case, for most of us, it's Green Mountain Power. I'll explain to you why you can zero out your bill. So in addition to that straight up, here's how many kilowatt hours you use, and you're getting credit for those 100, so it's going to wipe them out. In addition to that, you get a 5.3 cent bonus. So if you're paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour, and I don't know if you set up your system while this program was going on, right now I get paid 20 cents a kilowatt hour to produce it. So you're paying 15 cents, you're going to get credit for that, and an additional 5.3 cents. And right now that's guaranteed for 10 years. If you're thinking about doing solar and maybe waiting until next year, you might want to do it this year because that whole net metering is going to be changing. They're reevaluating the whole system and it will change. We don't know what it's going to change to. It might be 3 cents, it might be 0. They may do this really bizarre thing where they're going to give preference to certain people and give them an extra penny or penalize you if you put it on prime agriculture. They're going to take away an incentive. So they're coming up with a fairly convoluted net metering 2.0. Right now, what you get is a straight up swap for your kilowatt hour rate that you pay, plus an additional 5.3 cents. So that's why we look at how much you pay for the year, as opposed to how many kilowatt hours. In New York State, it's totally different. The net metering is just straight up kilowatt hours. So how many kilowatt hours do you use a year? That's the size that we have to do. In Vermont, because of this 5.3 cents, you've got those monthly charges, $25 every month that you can actually zero that out because you've got these 5.3 cents. So right now on every system that gets installed, you get a 30% federal tax credit. So 30% of the price comes right off the price up front. Obviously, you have to have a tax appetite. So in order to get that back, you have to have paid. If the system's $20,000, you're going to get $6,000 back. You have to have paid $6,000 in taxes. So it's a little bit, for some people, it doesn't work. Retirees who don't necessarily have a tax appetite, it doesn't work. The tax credit can be taken, the year that you install, when it's active or in production. So I did last year, we were literally finishing 3 huge installations on New Year's Eve because these people wanted their tax credits last year. So it's the year that system is running. On New Year's Eve, we were finished with them. I emailed Green Mountain Power, said, boom, these systems are going. Green Mountain Power didn't come and put in what we do is we put in a temporary meter. Green Mountain Power didn't come and put in their production meter until a week later. But because the system was live, then they got their credit last year. The problem with this, and I was talking with Bernie Sanders' staff yesterday because they come by, and I said it needs to be a rebate. If this was a rebate, a lot more people would be doing solar. Because I talk to farmers. They should be doing. I say that we're harvesting the sun. That's what they harvest everything. They should harvest the sun, and most of them have no income. that they claim, so they can't take advantage of a tax credit. Because you have to pay taxes in order to get that back. So basically how you monetize them is there's a 30% income tax credit. You've got the 5.3 cent bonus. In Vermont, there's also a solar tax credit for businesses. So for businesses in Vermont, you're getting an extra 7.2% investment tax credit on top of the 30% tax credit. So 37.2% is coming right back the first year. You also get to depreciate the equipment like you do any equipment. So, and it's an accelerated depreciation. I think you can do half of it the first year. He wants to know if for a commercial meter, you can also get the 5.3 cents. Yes. Any system that's over 15 kilowatt, the bonus goes to 4.3 cents. So, but we don't have to worry right now in Vermont because we can't do anything over 15 kilowatts, which is absurd, but it's really interesting. There's a limitation right now on the size that you can do. So commercial has been really hard to do this year because we can't put in 30 kilowatts. We can put in 15 kilowatts, except for if you have a business and you want to do more than 15, talk to me today, because literally we have this week. They announced, last week, or the week before, you have from July 11th to July 22nd to apply for anything larger than 15 kilowatt. And if it's more than 7.5 megawatts total, they're going to draw names out of a hat to see who gets the projects, which is absurd. But yes, so right now, if you're a business, you also get the 5.3 cents. I mean, basically, it's any meter that we put in, and it's tallying production, you're going to get 5.3 cents. And then a couple other things I just want to point out, the income that you receive is tax-free. All it is taking money that you would have spent on your electric bill and it's keeping it in your pocket. There's no sales tax on any solar installations in Vermont. I can talk to you about renewable energy credits. RECs is a huge discussion that's going on right now. Part of the reason that they want to rein in some of these larger projects. So these renewable energy credits are this great kind of esoteric American thing that it's like buying carbon offsets. So a polluting company buys carbon offsets and then they're all great. Well, the renewable energy credits, there's a certain value to me producing renewable energy. And there's a market for it. And mostly for larger systems. And in fact, these big solar farms that you see going out, what they're doing is they're selling their energy credits out of state. And I talked to a business about doing 150 kilowatts last year. They can then say that their business runs on renewable energy unless they sell their RECs. Once they sell their RECs, then they can't say it. So the electrons are still flowing, they're going through their meter, they're getting all their kilowatt hours and their bonus. In that case, it's only 4.3 cents. But they cannot then advertise that they have renewable energy because they sold that right to somebody else. At which point my neighbor, who sells RECs for a living, lives in New Jersey, and he sells RECs for a living. He whips out his phone and he goes, no, actually, they could still do it. They sell their Class 1 solar RECs for $50. That's how much it is at the going rate right now. But they can buy their Class 3 wind RECs at $12. So they're still going to make $38, and they can still say they run on renewable energy. People will see the panels, but they won't know that the renewable energy is coming from. So anyway, it's this really bizarre. I had to have it explained to me about 5 times before I totally understood it. My system is a 9.5 kilowatt. If I want to sell my RECs, you have to have a third-party verification company. Actually, the company that does it for Vermont is here in Manchester. They charge you $600 a year, $150 a quarter to verify your RECs. My system would produce about $500 worth a year. So for my system, I can't do it. For a 150 kilowatt system, you're looking at probably $35,000. So you can understand how it makes the profitability of a larger project. You can make some money selling your RECs. So anyway, that's we could have a whole class on RECs, and I'm happy to not teach it. But that is something that, when you see these big systems, that's part of how they're monetizing it. And one of the really important things that I talk to with people, what we're going to do is we're going to look at what your electric bill is. But not just your electric bill. We want to look at what your whole energy consumption is. Because you can actually look at what your fossil fuels are. If you heat your house with fuel oil, this one friend of ours pays $4,000 a year for fuel oil. Well, if she puts in cold climate heat pumps, which are super efficient, run on electricity, she'll spend a third of that. So she would spend $1,300 a year in electricity. But if she's got the solar panels, then she just took care of her heating. She just eliminated fuel from her diet, and $4,000 a year. So you know, and I also tell them if you have a 15-year-old refrigerator, get rid of that because you're losing money by owning that. So there's a bunch of different ways. It's not just a matter of slamming up a bunch of panels. It's let's look at what your whole thing is. My wife and I got an electric car. That's our 9.5 kilowatt array. I used to make furniture in that shop, so I don't use as much electricity there. So that powers my house, the shop, and then we looked at how much we were paying for one of our internal combustion engines, and we figured out it was $200 a month with gas, oil changes, mufflers. There's none of that on this. You know, we change the tires on it every once in a while for winter. So now we just plug that into our solar panels, and thank you very much. We drive past the gas station, and actually one of us inevitably has to put gas in the other car, and it's just like, it feels so old school, you know, putting this dinosaur stuff in the car. But so you can look at electrifying your vehicles. And then here's the cold climate heat pumps. You know, they're super efficient. They don't work in every house. We actually have our house is built in, I was told 1685, and I don't doubt it. So every room is like tiny and blocked off. So it wouldn't really work well there. It's more conducive to open spaces. I work with Diesel Electric. They actually have a booth here. They do the installations for all the heat pumps that my customers use, and they'll go in and they'll just look at the layout of your house. And you know, this is technology that has hugely advanced and works great. As you get down to about 15 degrees below zero, they say they stop working. They don't stop working, but they get less efficient. And so they'll have to labor a little bit. Generally, you want to still have a backup heat. So if we have 3 weeks of 30 degrees, you're going to be pushing this thing. So you may want to have backup heat. But this is another way that you can put some electric, you know, on your thing. So why should you go solar? Because it's there every day. It's, all right, not every day, but it's abundant and it's durable. So these panels are the sun power panels that I'm selling and other panels. The sun power panels are designed to last for 40 years. They're warranted for 25 years. We put them up on the roof and you're done. I mean, basically every other energy generation, you've got to feed it with fuel and you've got to maintain it like crazy. So the capital cost is actually keeps going after the installation. With this, all the capital is up front, and then you're just making money. Occasionally, you might have a microinverter fail or something, but literally zero maintenance. One thing I haven't done with my system is hose it off, like when there's really bad pollen. You know, what percentage am I losing by being covered with pollen? You know, birds are going to do their thing on it. You know, there's going to be some. You know, so I haven't really looked at. You know, is it really worth my getting up there with a hose? You know what, they just keep working. When there's snow, inevitably someone will ask, what about the snow? I mean, my roof is probably about 30-degree roof. Snow gets on it, 8 inches of snow. You know, 2 days later, the sun comes out, they start to warm up. They're still gonna sense light, so they start to warm up and they come right off. On really flat roof houses, one of my customers was here today that we had done, her roof was probably a 10-degree pitch. We still put them on there. What we do is we design the system to produce in the summer. So we know that we're going to have zero snow in December and January. I mean, zero sun. So we design it to be producing during the sun. So if you end up with, there's a week in December where they're covered with snow and they're really not producing, you didn't lose much, you know, because there's no sun. Jim Hand had put like 480 something panels on top of hand motors. And he said the first year he hired this guy to clean them off. You know, every time it snowed, clean them off. He found out he was losing money because he's paying the guy more than what the panels were going to make him. So you know, we designed it for the summer months when we know we're going to be producing, and anything you get in the winter is a bonus. So the trackers are interesting because they, if it's high wind, they'll go flat. If it snows, they'll tilt up. The snow goes off. Yeah, they've got a bunch of different modes that the tracker will do. Yeah. Well, what they'll do is they're facing due west at sunset, and then at night they flatten and they slowly go back to the east and wake up. But if it's snowing, then they should dump. And then, why else should you do solar? How many people here have an electric bill? Everybody. have an electric bill. You have an electric bill every month. Every month you pay an electric bill, you know, and so look at how much you pay in electricity for a year. Multiply it by 10, okay? That's probably what your system's going to be. Guess what? After that, you literally don't have to pay for electricity again. This is an example of a bill from I think it's an alleged Green Mountain Power customer. But basically, this is what your bill is going to look like. It's going to tell you, all right, here's how much you generated, 467 kilowatt hours today. 112 of it was used while you were generating it, okay? In the whole day, including the night, the house used 381. 112 of that came from the solar, so 269 of it you had to pull from the grid in the evening. So you actually ended up with a net gain. You kicked in 355 to the grid, but you only took out 269. So you end up with minus. And I'm not sure if they have the 5.3 cent bonus on here. They don't have the tally on that. But then what they'll also have, and that's on the second page of the bill, is here's how much you generated, 467 times 0.053. That also gets credited to your account. So this is why you should do it, because it goes negative. Actually, this customer that I just said stopped by today with the flat roof, I mean, she hasn't had an electric bill in 2 years, and she's pretty excited about it. Sorry. Another reason you should do it is for the environment. I sometimes neglect to say that, but the reason that I'm doing this is to save the planet. It doesn't have to be why everyone's doing it. You know, one guy I talked to said he doesn't, well, I won't quote him. He doesn't care about that. He cares about his pocket. Well, but you can care about both. And this is the system, the statement that I get from my monitoring system. It tells me every month how many trees I saved, how much CO2 emissions I did. It'll also add to the value of your house. Okay, there was a study done in California, and this was just on about a 4 kilowatt system, a 3.6 kilowatt system. And the study was, this was nationwide, you know, does this add value to the property of your house? Okay, so we talked about a $20,000 system. It's costing you 14 because you got 6 back. Some of you got 6 back from the tax credit. And it's adding $15,000 to the value of your house. So when I do a projection for people, I don't even include that. We're just talking about your electric bill. But there's also this. So, you know, keep that in mind going forward. And then there's the return on your investment, okay? This is a fairly typical installation. So this is the person who has a $130 electric bill. Okay, they need 6.5 kilowatt. So for them, the price was $22,540. They get, here's their tax credit, so their net investment was $16,000. It's going to generate $1,600 worth of electricity. So they're immediately getting back 10% return, almost 10% return on their money, which is a pretty good return on an investment nowadays. I actually just drove past Albany, and they had this big sign from this bank that says, you know, new super CD rate, 1%. Like, oh my God, put it up on your roof and you get 10%. And over the years, the savings add up. So that's a fairly typical installation. And then one of the difficulties right now is obviously coming up with, in this case, you got to come up with $22,000. You're going to get back the 7, and so it ends up being 16. A lot of people don't have that up front. So right now we're working, we highly recommend the Vermont State Employees Credit Union. That's who we went with when we did our system. They are really one of the few institutions in Vermont that understand that what they're doing is financing an asset as opposed to a liability. But we also work with SunGage Financial. And you notice how they spell it? Instead of a mortgage, it's a SunGage. Because I don't like to talk negatively about my peers. I don't consider my other solar installers my competitors, they're my peers. But I will say that SolarCity's model of a lease is really, really, I don't know if I should say this if it's going to go on TV. It's a bad model. You know, what they do is they put a lien on your house. So, I mean, just Google solar lease nightmare. You know, in Massachusetts, people who wanted to take out a home equity loan, they couldn't get one because SolarCity had first position on their loan. They went to sell their house. Very fine print says, oh yeah, SolarCity gets to approve who buys your house. They get to check their credit score. So be really careful. To me, it's a stupid model. We're going to put some stuff up on your roof. You're going to get, $20 off your electric bill, and we'll see what happens in 20 years. You know, to me, I'd rather have you own it. Well, SunGage Financial, what they'll do is they'll actually, you can do it with no money down. What they'll do is they'll give you a 0% interest on that 30% tax credit. So in the $20,000 example, $6,000 of that loan is 0% for a year. Once you get that, if you get that tax credit, when you get that tax credit, you pay that off, and then your loan is just the $14,000. If it happens that your tax credit was only $4,000, they'll roll that $2,000 into the other loan. But basically what they'll work it out is that, so you end up, you have one solid payment. You can do it 10 years, you can do it 15 years. Here's what your electric bill is going to do. Here's what your loan. And then at the end of this, you have no payment, and you've got free electricity. This is an example of a house in New York, 0 down payment. Their electric bill is $131. Once they put in solar, then their solar payment plus their electric bill was $106. So basically they're saving $25 a month, and in 15 years, or I can't remember if this was a 15-year loan, then they own the system and they're good to go. I try and think of a case where leasing is a good idea, and I haven't come up with one yet. I mean, it's working. People are signing up for it because it's easy. They have solar panels on their house, and they feel like they're doing renewable energy. To me, there's a better way to go. So these are some of the examples. And then people always ask me, how long does it take to install? And so it usually takes about 2.5 minutes. This is our crew doing a big ground mount in Manchester. Actually, this was the first ground mount in Manchester Village, which was interesting. If you go down the Southern Vermont Arts Center driveway, the house is about 3 houses north of where you come out onto Manchester West Road. So anyway, that's the crew installing. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, so the question is, if you can't do the whole house, can you remove, just get rid of your hot water electric bill? Not everybody has the capacity on their roof or in their yard to eliminate their entire bill. So if we can only eliminate $200 out of your $300 electric bill, then you're still getting that same return, still getting the 10% return on your investment. You're not ending up with a 0 electric bill. And the question is it expandable? It is. Right now, they don't want you to build a system larger than what you need. So if your bill is $100 a month, it's stupid to put up a system that's going to produce 130 because they don't write you a check at the end of the year. One thing I neglected to mention with the net metering because you can build it, and so then I want to just finish that thought. Well, you can make them modular. So if you know you're going to get an electric car, yes, we'll be able to add to it later. If you know that you're going to do that, let's get it ready ahead of time. The ground mount that's a different ground mount. This one I just did in Manchester, we put in 15 kilowatt because that's all we could do last year. But we put in the infrastructure to add 30 more. We put in the circuit breaker, we put in the conduit, knowing that going forward we're not going to have to dig up or add. It's a lot easier to add it while you're doing it. So if you do think you're going to expand, get some heat pumps, get an electric car, then think of that ahead of time. And then yes, it can be modular enough. One thing I neglected to mention about net metering is the group net metering. So if you put up $130, your electric bill is $130 a month, but you can put up enough to do $150 a month, and you could give it to Bob or the church or Bennington Habitat for Humanity. You can donate it, you can sell it. A lot of people are building, here's what I need for my house, but I can put in 15 kilowatt. Because what happens is, and this is why everybody's putting up solar panels in Vermont, or venture capitalists from Massachusetts are, because you get the 15.3 cents and the 5.3 cent adder. Well, Bob has a slate roof, so he can't put it on his roof, and he's got trees in his yard, so he can't do it. So, and I'm doing this with a couple in Londonderry right now. She can put in 15 kilowatts. And then she could sell the spare, any excess, or say 1,000 kilowatt hours a month to Bob. Right now, Bob's paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour. She'll say, tell you what, Bob, I'll sell it to you for 12 cents a kilowatt hour. So Bob's all excited. He's getting, 25% off. 25. He's getting 3 cents off, per kilowatt hour. Well, she's making she's getting credits at 15 cents plus the 5.3 cent bonus. So she's selling it to him for 12 cents, and she's getting the 5.3 cent bonus. So she's making money. So, but when you do that group net metering, so if I wanted to put my daughter, she lives in Burlington, I can put her on my system. What happens is there's a monthly charge for each account that you have. and it's $6.50 per each account. So if this woman puts in her system and sells it to Bob, now we've got 2 meters on there, so she's going to have to pay $13 a month just for the process that they have to go through. Yeah, so he asked about Green Mountain Power reaching their capacity. So what happened is the legislature randomly, it had been a rule last year that each utility had to allow 4% of their capacity to be net metered. And they reached it immediately. So then they changed it to 15%, which was a completely random number, and they thought they would never reach 15% in last year. Well, they did. They reached it by November of last year. They thought they'd get it to the end of this year. So what they did was they actually had a little criteria where if a utility wanted to go above that, they could petition the Public Service Board to go above 15%. And so Green Mountain Power did that. And right now, the Public Service Board just came out with that ruling that says, yeah, you can go ahead if only in this week. Right now, if you want to do anything under 15 kilowatt, we can go right through. But I've got to go because my time is up and someone else is coming in. Thank you, everybody.